Hello, this is Morale Bernard with the continuing story of Booker T. Washington, an American. Booker T. Washington. And by the way, please subscribe, please share these videos. Last words were that I have known of cases where such men were hired for 25 cents a day and their board, and they were dear help even at that price. I believe that most of the worn out and wasted fields, the poor stock, the run-down fences, the lost and broken farm tools and machinery, as well as the poor crops, are chargeable to the farmhand, whom I have been warned so many times. I must be careful not to spoil. Such a man is too ignorant to know what is going on in the world in progressive agriculture. He is without skill to such an extent that he knows almost nothing about setting up and operating labor-saving machinery. His conscience has not been trained, and hence he has little idea of giving an honest day's labor for a day's pay, and of doing unto others in matters of labor as he would have others do unto him. It will be seen at a glance that such a worker in the soil as this cannot compete with a farmer of the Northwest, who owns the land that he cultivates, who is intelligent, and who uses the latest improved farm machinery. One such man is worth as much to the general industrial interest of the country as 3 farm hands. No country can be very prosperous unless the people who cultivate the soil own it and live on it. I repeat, then, that one of my first thoughts in beginning agricultural training at the Tuskgee Institute was to help to replace the farm hand of the South with something better. As an illustration of the need of new ideas in farming and of the effect that the long-continued cultivation of a single crop has upon the tiller, I remember that some years ago I invited a farmer into my office and explained to him in detail how he could make $30 an acre on his land if he would plant a portion of it in sweet potatoes, whereas if he planted cotton, as he had been doing for years, he could make only $15 per acre in the best season. As I explained the difference, step by step, he agreed with me at every point. And when I came near to the end of my argument, I began to congratulate myself that I had converted at least one man from the one-crop system to better methods. Finally, with what I fear was the air of one who felt that he had won his case, I asked the farmer what he was going to cultivate on his land the coming year. The old fellow scratched his head and said that as he was getting old and had been growing cotton all his life, he reckoned he would grow it to the end of his few remaining years, although he agreed with me that he could double the product of his land by planting sweet potatoes on it. Soon after, we had succeeded in clearing the trees and stumps from a few acres of ground. We planted a small crop. This crop, as I have stated, was not very different from others which the students had seen planted or had taken part in planting at their homes, because the school was poor in implements and stock. The main difference between our first crop and those which the student had come into contact with at their homes was that ours was to some extent a diversified crop. The increasing number of students soon made it necessary to increase the acreage of land cultivated. In the first few months of the Tuskgee Institute, the students boarded in families. This made it difficult to get the greatest value out of our farm products. Partly to overcome this, we arranged to begin boarding the students upon the school grounds. Here, another difficulty presented itself. It was found that a student would be of little value to the farm and would gain very little in knowledge and skill if he worked only a few hours each day. We discovered that after there had been subtracted the minutes required for him to reach his work, get his tools, and otherwise prepare himself, little time would be left for getting actual results out of the soil. In order to overcome this weakness in our system, we decided to follow in some measure the plan originated by General Armstrong at the Hampton Institute. This was to have the students study in the classrooms during 4 hours of the week and work on the farm 2 days. The students, however, for a long time while referred to these 2 days as lost days. It was often amusing as well as interesting to note the intense faith of the students in their books. The larger the book and the bigger the words it contained, the more highly it was revered. At this time, there were almost no textbooks which dealt with industrial subjects. For this reason, anyone who wanted to give instructions in such branches had, in a very large measure, to blaze his way. The absence of textbooks on these subjects made it all the more difficult at first to combine industrial and academic teaching. We partly solved the problem by having the students work 2 days at some industry and study 4 days in the schoolroom. We found it advisable to consider not only the best system of teaching in our practical work, but the economic values also. We felt that it would be possible to teach the students the latest and best methods of performing all kinds of handwork, and at the same time show them the dignity of such service. But in addition to this, we wanted the students to do such work as they could about the school, work which otherwise would have been done by hired men not connected with the institution. We felt, therefore, that the fair thing to do would be to arrange some scheme by which the student would receive compensation for all the work of value which he did for the school. This, we felt, was not only just, but would emphasize another valuable element in teaching. The lack of this economic emphasis I've always felt to be one of the weak points in manual training. To enable us to meet this condition, we decided to have the students board on the school grounds, to charge them $8 per month for their board, and to give them credit on their board bills for all the work they did, which proved to have productive or money-saving value. Aside from the economic results of the work, we knew that the mere effort on the part of the student to help himself through school by labour would prevent our making hot house plants of our students and would prove worthwhile in character building. In all cases, payment for work depended upon the individual efforts of the students. One of the dominating purposes, kept always in mind, was to give the student a chance to help himself by means of some industry. In this connection, I beg to say that, in my judgment, the whole problem of the figure of my race hinges largely upon the question: to what extent will the Negro, when given a chance, help himself and make himself indispensable to the community in which he lives? We soon learned that in the practical application of our scheme, the average student would earn from $2 to $3 a month by working 2 days in the week, leaving only $5 or $6 to be paid in cash. Some students were so much in earnest that they worked out more than half of the $8. This opportunity proved a godsend to most of the students, as very few of them were able to pay the $8 a month in cash during 9 months of the year. Aside from other considerations, we began to find out that we could quickly test the worth of a student by the degree of earnestness which he evinced in helping himself through labor with his hands. After a little while, many of the students began to take great pride in telling their parents at the end of each month how much they'd helped themselves through their work on the farm or in other industries. This information and enthusiasm came in time to have its influence in leading the parents to appreciate the value of hand training. As the school grew in size and experience, it became apparent that we ought to find a way to help the larger number of young men and women who were constantly seeking admission, but who had no money with which to pay any portion of their expenses. We became convinced that some of the most promising and worthy students were those who came from the country districts, where they had had very few advantages of book education. They had little or no money, but they had good, strong bodies and were not ashamed to work with their hands. In reaching this class of students, I found that my experience at the Hampton Institute was of great advantage. We decided to start a night school for students who could not afford to go to school in the daytime. The number who availed themselves of this arrangement was very small at first. We began by making a written contract with each student to the effect that he or she was to work during the whole of the day at some industry and study in the classroom for 2 hours at night after the day's work was completed. In order to put this plan upon a sound basis, the following form of contract was signed. This agreement, made the 17th day of October, 1902, between James C. Black of the first part and Booker T. Washington, principal of the Tuskgee Normal and Industrial Institute of the second part. Witness that the said James C. Black has agreed faithfully, carefully, and truly to serve the Tuskegee Normal and Industrial Institute in whatever capacity the said Booker T. Washington, principal, etc., or those deputed by him may designate from date hereof to the 17th day of October 1904. In consideration of service to be rendered by James C. Black, the said Booker T. Washington, principal, etc., has agreed to allow said James C. Black $8 per month, provided he remains until October 17th, 1904. Otherwise, he has agreed to pay him at the rate of 1/5 of that sum per month for the time he may have been in the service of the Tuskegee Normal and Industrial Institute. This latter amount to include all amounts which may have been charged against said James C. Black. It is agreed further that the amount earned shall be reserved in the hands of the said Booker T. Washington, principal, etc., the same to be used in paying the expenses of said James C. Black in the regular classes of the Tuskegee Normal and Industrial Institute. In case the said James C. Black leaves school voluntarily or is dismissed after the expiration of the time for which he agrees to serve, he is to forfeit all that the school may owe him at that time. It is further agreed that no part of what said James C. Black may earn shall be transferred to another's account, but shall be kept for James C. Black's exclusive use after he shall have entered the day school. It is distinctly understood that what said James C. Black may earn is for the purpose of paying board, and no part can be drawn in cash. In witness whereof we have hitherto set our hands and seal, and of course then signed by James C. Black and by Booker T. Washington. The system we decided to use at Tuskegee divided the school into two classes of students: those who worked with their hands 2 days in the week and spent 4 days in the classroom, and the night students, who through the first year of their course worked all day with their hands and spent their evenings in the classrooms. Of course, the student who worked 10 hours each day was paid more than the one who laboured only 2 days in the week. The night school students were to earn not only their board, but something in addition. The surplus was to be used in paying their expenses in the regular day school after they had remained in the night school 1 or 2 years, as they might elect. The night school, besides other opportunities, gave the student a chance to get a start in his books and also in some trade or industry. With this as a foundation, I have rarely seen a student who was worth much fail to pass through the regular course. The night school had not been in session many weeks before several facts began to make themselves prominent. The first was the economic value of the work of the night students. It was plain that these students could perform much labour, for which we should otherwise have had to pay out cash to persons not connected with the institution. It is true that the work at first was crude, but it should be remembered that in the earlier years, the whole school was crude. All work in laying the foundation for a race is crude. The economic value of handwork at the Tuskgee Institute can be illustrated in no better way than by data of the construction of our buildings. When a friend has given us $25,000 for a building instead of having it constructed by an outside contractor, we have had the students produce the material and do the work as far as possible. And through this method, a large proportion of the money given for the building passes into the hands of the students to be used in gaining an education. The plan has a double value. For in addition to the $25,000 which is reverted into channels through which a large number of students get an education, the school receives the building for permanent use. Let us value the work at Tuskegee by this test. The plans for the Slater Armstrong Memorial Trades Building, in its main dimension 283 by 315 feet and 2 stories high, were drawn by a coloured man. Our instructor in mechanical drawing. 800,000 bricks were required in its construction, and every one of them was manufactured by our students while learning the trade of brickmaking. All the bricks were laid into the building by students who were being taught the trade of brick masonry. The plastering, carpentry work, painting, and tin roofing were done by students while learning these trades. The whole number of students who received training on this building alone was 196. It is lighted by electricity, and all the electric fixtures were put in by students who were learning electrical engineering. The power to operate the machinery in this building comes from a 125 horsepower engine and a 75 horsepower boiler. All this machinery was not only operated by students who were learning the trade of steam engineering, but was installed by students under the guidance of their instructor. For other examples of the amount of work that our students do in the direction of self-help, I would mention the fact that they manufactured over 200,990 bricks during the past 12 months. 1,367 garments of various kinds have been made in the tailor shop. 541,000 and odd pieces have been laundered in the laundry division by the girls. Agriculture is the industry which we plan to make stand out most prominently, and we expect more and more to base much of our training upon this fundamental industry. There are two reasons why we have not been able to send out as many students from our agriculture department as we have desired. First, agriculture was the industry most disliked by students and their parents in the early years of the school. It required nearly 10 years to overcome this prejudice. And the second point is that nearly all our buildings, 72 in number, have been built by the students, and the building trades have of necessity been emphasized. As soon as the building period slackens, we shall be able to send out a larger number skilled in all the branches of agriculture. The story of Booker T. Washington. Join me for the next video of an American. The real life story of Booker T. Washington. Join me for the next video, and please remember to subscribe and share. Join me for the next video of Booker T. Washington. See you then. Morale.